Okay, so if you just tuned in, we are glad to have you join the conversation. And the program once again is today with John and Helen on PlusTvAfrica. And our focus today is bipolar disorder. We shall also be critically analyzing emotional intelligence from the perspective of understanding and managing grief. This will be taken by Pharaoh, our live style host, with her guest Mojisola Ogunkoya when that time comes. John and I will be learning a lot. And we hope you join us from our own guest on this segment, who is Dr. Israel Owolabi, in just a moment.
Yes.
Anything to rap about?
Anything to rap about? I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that, Helen. We have so many things to talk about. So it's so difficult to know where to start. For instance, so many people have had the door slammed shut on them for PVC collection.
You changed position.
I did.
I thought like 3 weeks ago when I mentioned this thing and I was asking for some kind of extension, you said this thing has been on for like forever. Why do you have to wait until the last minute?
Yeah, but there are still some people who were not able to get in through the door. You know, I mean, like if we could keep it open online for people to still continue to do their
I think the
registration.
excuse or the explanation from INEC is that they need all of the time now to collate, to be able to issue, you know, for those who have registered, and to do all the other things that they need to do in preparation for 2023.
Yeah.
And I was wondering that can this be done simultaneously, even with, you know, opening the doors for more registration? Because I know for sure that so many people were unable to register.
There's something we need to get right about that system. Some people have even suggested that, okay, why don't we go through the banks? You know, just like we pick up our ATM cards, just like we pick up our ATM cards, even if it means paying a little bit to get your card immediately. Well, maybe we need to look into it. Helen.
And something else that really was biting me within the week. I'm not one that eats a lot of bread, but I know that, hey, like 90% of Nigerians live on bread.
Like me.
Okay, and the price of bread has like shot up.
It's gone up, yeah.
It's
really gone up, yeah.
And the bakers were saying, yeah, for these reasons, and we don't want to reduce quality, so now they are reducing quantity and increasing
But
price.
that should change. I think that should change soon because, you know, the situation in Ukraine, you know, there's been some kind of an arrangement where Russia has allowed Ukraine to export some of their wheat.
Once upon a time, we were working on getting our wheat, you know, producing more wheat in Nigeria and getting our bread instead of bread from flour. What happened to that?
We haven't done so now. So we'll pay the price.
Wow. Right.
So anyhow, this week as usual has been flooded with all kinds of activities, events and news. Some shocking, some unbelievable, and others simply annoying.
True. Very, very true. And sometimes we like, there's no need to talk about it anymore, you know. But while we continuously ask how we got here in the first place, our hearts go out to the millions of Nigerians who do not have a voice. Millions in the rural areas at this point in time, especially our children, our aged persons who are in the IDP camps, who simply are barely surviving. You know, they're going through so much, and there's really no way out to help them.
Yeah.
Our hearts go out to them today.
Yeah, you can say that again, Helen. Well,
all right. Nigerians, in God we trust.
Yes.
In God we trust. Hoping for a better day tomorrow.
Yeah. So let's get back to the conversation on bipolar disorder. Already seated and equipped with answers is Dr. Israel Owolabi, a medical doctor and a graduate of Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, whose medical work experience spans over 17 years, with more than half of these years spent in psychiatry practice. Our guest is an associate fellow of the National Postgraduate Medical College of Nigeria.
Dr. Israel Owolabi's interest is in giving medical practice a facelift while contributing in upgrading teaching, research, and services. Over the years, our guest has become a force to be reckoned with in providing psychological support for disaster management, and he's an astute advocate of mental health literacy and a member of the Association of Psychiatrists in Nigeria. Dr. Owolabi says he is a doctor by profession and a mental health priest by calling. I'm excited to know more about that. Thank you so much for joining us. You look so young. Over 70 years in practice. 17? What's happening?
So
is it the priesty aspect?
I would say it's the Lord's doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how come you're a priest in?
Because I see myself as a priest because I need to. I see it that I need to propagate the gospel of mental health awareness
Yes.
and mental health well-being to the people.
Yes.
Wow.
Because when we are talking about being well, being healthy, as far as the WHO is concerned, World Health Organization, it was said that Earth is a state of complete social, physical, mental, and social well-being. Recently, I've also added, in my own perspective, I've also added spiritual well-being also. And it's not just mere absence of diseases.
So whichever way you look at it, could we then ask pastor or priest or apostle to your...
No, he's doctor.
His doctor. You're straight doctor.
I'm a doctor.
But whichever way you look at it, you're a shrink.
Okay.
Do people call you
That's
shrink?
the tag. That's the tag.
That's the
Over
tag.
there, they put on us.
Anyhow, Doctor, thanks for joining us. Now let's go straight into the topic, which is bipolar disorder. You see, there's nothing worse than not being able to predict a friend or a member of your family's mood. One moment he's happy, and all of a sudden he's apprehensive, blowing hot and cold.
Yeah.
Please explain why.
Yeah, when we're talking about bipolar disorder, I need to take it from the basic explanation. Bi means two poles. So the one pole of the disorder is the manic episode, and the other pole is the depressive phase. But based on the diagnostic manuals we've been using to diagnose someone as being bipolar, it's quite possible for someone to have just an episode of manic episode, or to just have an episode of mania, and you say the person is bipolar, because it is believed that it's quite possible that a subtle episode of depression that must have gone unrecognized. So still say the person has bipolar disorder. And when we are talking about bipolar disorder, the core symptoms we're talking about is the mood. The mood may be elated mood or irritable mood, but everything as far as the mood is concerned is on the high side. It's on the high side. Also, another aspect of it is the activity. The person is hyperactive and also exaggerated self-worth. Believe that I have extraordinary power, I have extraordinary strength, specially endowed, even more than others. I can do beyond what others can do. And this will now be the fulcrum on which other aspects of the ailment will revolve around.
Wow.
So,
Okay. Maybe at this point is the proper time to ask what exactly sparks off this behavior. What are the predisposing factors?
Predisposing factor. When we are talking about predisposing factor for bipolar disorder, we can't isolate bipolar disorder in that realm. Other mental health issues too could be incorporated into it. And one aspect of the predisposing factor that is very, very important is the genetic constitution. Because there are some things that happen to us that we don't have a say in it. Because we carry the genes of our parents. Our mom of our dad. And if any of them, at least one of them has this gene of this problem in them, there is possibility that we're going to carry it, and then we'll manifest it. Especially the first degree relatives. We're talking about the parents, the siblings. So we are likely going to manifest it.
Immediate family.
Yes, immediate family members. Also, another aspect of it is the early childhood towards experiences. For example, a child who experienced parental separation very early in life. This may be a stressor.
Okay.
And before you know it, the person can manifest bipolar disorder. It may start with the depressive phase of the pole, and then subsequently the manic phase could come up. And perhaps also, not only that, not only parental separation, perhaps the parental death, especially when the child is less than 10 years and there is parental death. The stressor could be in that realm.
Okay.
So, and so many other
Or violence in the family environment.
violence in the family, maybe conflicts in the family, maybe between the two spouses, the spouse that form the parent of the child.
Yeah.
So, and one of the windows through which this will be manifested will be the children. And so they could come down with this.
That's interesting. But you see, you've talked about the genetic
Yes.
aspect of it. Now, I have for many years worked among creative people, you know, artists, writers, singers, whatever. And so many times they are described as being crazy. Is being bipolar being crazy?
Yeah, it's not. That's a tag the outside world will put on them. When someone is bipolar, just like every other form of mental illness. Sorry, before I go forward, I need to tell us that mental illness are so much and diverse. And there is no age, sexual, tribal, or racial predilection when talking about mental illness. So, as we are, if at least we are 4 in this studio, at least one of us may have one mental health issue or the other.
Not,
I mean, like
not
25% of the
I
population.
reject it.
So 25% of the population. So it's like 1 out of 4 will have mental health issue.
One
Out of 4.
One
That's
out of 4.
25% of our
Yes.
population.
So one of them is bipolar
Is a bit
disorder.
off track.
So in the one aspect, in the one hand, we have anxiety disorders,
Okay.
sex and stress or stress-related disorders, mood disorders. We are under the mood disorder is where we have bipolar disorder. We have depressive and manic phase of the mood disorder, and at the other extreme end are the psychotic disorders. So also substance related disorders too are also one form of mental health issue that is becoming an epidemic now. So when we're now talking about bipolar disorder, if someone manifests bipolar disorder, you don't need to call them as being crazy.
What about manic?
The something that has to do with mania is that everything is on the high side.
Okay.
I remember my teacher then, while we were in the psychiatry post in the medical school, told us, he used a graph to describe what bipolar disorder is. He said if you plot a graph where the y-axis, there's x-axis, and the positive y-axis, that is where the mania is. Everything is going up. In the negative y-axis, that is where depression is.
Okay.
But there is the origin of the graph. That is where it is expected to, the mood of the person is expected to be premorbidly before the onset of the illness. So that is why when you are treating a patient that has bipolar disorder, you need to make reference to whom the person used to be before the onset of the illness, so that you won't overflog it. Because along the line, we discovered that a lot of our patients who have depression, in the process of treating the depression, the mood goes up. Goes up. And then,
All right. You know, John touched on something that I also have experienced.
yes.
The creative circle. The creative juice is something that from time to time gets your adrenaline pumping when you need to like think out of the box and create something from nothing. So it's okay to call creatives crazy.
Sometimes you need
But
that
it's not
creative juice. You need that craziness,
Yes,
to be
yes.
able to create.
Yes. But
Yeah.
then we're moving on to other areas. Because I've worked, like you said, I've worked, but some people that like, but then the very next minute they are like, they're back to being the saints. Because some of these things have to happen for the job to get done. So we may not, pinpoint that, okay, is a deficiency. Now, the sufferer of bipolar, is he or she aware? And can she or he control himself or herself?
Yeah, thank you for that important question. There is what we call insight when it comes to mental health issues generally. But we discovered that most of the people who have bipolar disorder don't tend to have insight into the problem. Because if you tell them that, as I said earlier on, that the immediate family members are like the lights, searchlights, who will tell you that this is not the person we used to know. But they'll be telling you there's nothing wrong with me. I'm okay. Well, you've not been sleeping well the way you used to sleep. You say, yes, why will I sleep when there are so many problems in the world that require me to solve? That's what we could reduce need for sleep. You say, I don't need to sleep. There are so many issues. There are so many problems in Nigeria.
Okay.
So I need to solve those problems. So in that realm, they may not, most time they don't believe.
So they deny it.
They deny it. And those who have been going through treatment to an extent, they know, most of them know that there is a problem. It's a fire on the mountain. But at that point in time, they may not be able to control it.
Okay.
But that is why some of them will come to the hospital. I know this is not things, some things are not really going on well with me. What do you think?
Okay.
So what you're saying is that, essentially, is that they don't know when to switch the button on and off. They don't have much control over that.
They don't.
They don't.
They don't.
Well, anyway, we also know that sufferers, will get into a state of being too happy or too sad. When is
Happy, too happy.
too happy, and when is sad or low, too low? When? How do we know it?
Actually, there is no meter that measures that. But the bottom line is that we need to know the personality of the pre-morbid personality of that person.
Okay.
There are some people who are always on the happy
Hyper.
side. They're always on the happy side. And there are some people, their personality is that they're always on the downside. But whichever level at which you are, when the problem, it becomes a problem or a disorder, when it is persistent, it is pervasive, and it's able to affect your functioning. It's able to affect your functioning. You're not functioning well. You're not relating well with families and friends. That means there is a problem. It's a problem.
Okay. That is something that I need to take home.
Okay.
When you are unable to relate well
Yeah.
with families and friends, and probably your level of productivity begins to diminish, that's a cause for concern. But human beings, normally, I mean, you can't be happy all the time or sad all the time. Normal. People get happy and get sad. Does that make anybody in that situation to think that there's a situation called bipolar disorder?
No, it doesn't. I said it earlier on that if life happens to all of us. Sometimes some things happen to us. Maybe there's a threat to our health. Perhaps a serious diagnosis is made. It tends to affect our mood. We may be sad, but when we are continuously or persistently or pervasively sad, to the extent that what we used to enjoy doing, we are no longer enjoy doing it, or our level of energy is persistently low, and we can't give any explanation for it. Okay. That means there is a problem. That means the person is going towards being depressed. But at the same time, when you notice that your level of energy is persistently going up, unlike whom you used to be, the person is becoming extravagant, the person will dress
Anyhow, shabbily.
Not even shabbily, flamboyantly.
Overstate your dressing.
And the energy level goes up, the person is elated, is irritable. Any small thing like this, he or she is put on the edge. Then you know that there is a problem. That is a red flag, that something has to be done urgently.
Okay.
Wow.
All right.
Okay. On that note, because I was going to quickly throw in another question, we'll just take a break so that you allow us time to, to take all of this in.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. We'll take a break now and we'll be back shortly.
Oh, yeah, no.
No.
Oh, my God. All right. Living with bipolar disorder, often for years, teaches you a lot about yourself, about mental health services, about medication, and a lot more. When I was reading about this last night, I came across the stigma aspect, the shame aspect, the discrimination aspect, from testimonies of different people who are right there at this point in time. So we could pick that up at this point. Dr. Owolabi is still here with us, and we're looking at bipolar disorder. And this is a concluding part of the program. So we'll try and look for solutions at this point, I want to believe. All right. So let's get straight to the other set of questions that we have. And the first one says, are sufferers self-aware of the behavior? You talked a little bit about it. And children, talk about children. You said they are targets, from the things that happen around them. Some will throw tantrums at a drop of a hat, and before you know it, it becomes another thing. Talk to us about children. How can we identify this in children, and how can we help them?
Yes, one of the things I didn't talk about earlier on is that age of onset of manic disorder or manic episode, usually around 17 years. That's towards the late teens or the adolescent period. So before that, there will be some traits. It's quite possible that the parents or the guardians would have been noticing in the
such as
behavioral patterns of such a child. There's what we call traits of conduct. It becomes a disorder later, but we've seen some traits in such a child that there is a problem, that is likely going to manifest in this child. It could be a trait. But before 18 years, there is no personality disorder you can diagnose. But you could have seen some traits. And some of when we're talking about bipolar disorder, especially depressive phase, there are some personality disorders that are related to it. For example, according to DSM, Diagnosis Statistical Manual by the American Psychiatric Association, there's in the cluster C of the disorder, you can have anxious personality, you can have the dependence, someone that has possibility of having dependent personality disorder or personality traits
Okay.
may develop depression later.
So we can't identify it until after 18 years.
Early
Early 20s.
We may be seeing some traits in them.
Such as
But-
what?
But what I'm trying to say is that it
Anger?
doesn't. Try to understand what I'm trying to say. It doesn't mean that a child cannot have depressive disorder, and it doesn't mean that a child cannot have manic disorder, cannot have bipolar disorder. But what I'm trying to say that the usual age of onset is around 17 years, and the average age that you notice bipolar disorder is around 21.
Okay.
But before then, you can be seeing some.
Can be seeing what you call
yes,
traits.
Yes, can be seeing some.
What you call traits.
Of course, there are the depressive disorder in children. There are mood disorders in children. So you see that.
I kind of see a lot of overlapping symptoms and signs between these different mental conditions.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
For instance, not too long ago we tried to ask questions about dementia. On this same program, and symptoms very close to what we are hearing now. Were discussed. They were fingered. Now, so, are we fair to assume that being bipolar is a sign of dementia?
Yeah, the depression on its own is also known as pseudodementia.
Wow.
Pseudo means fake dementia. So those behavioral attributes
Yes.
you see in bipolar disorder, you can also see it in
dementia.
In dementia, but it's just that, for example, catastrophic reaction that someone that is demented usually display. You can also see something like that. It's also a mood disorder. What I mean by catastrophic reaction is that some of them will be displaying some disorganized behavior, and you try to challenge them. This is not the person I used to know. What is the problem?
They get upset.
They get upset. Are you trying to tell me that I don't know what I'm doing? They will start throwing tantrum. Okay. So you see that. and there is also what we call sundowning effect.
Sundowning.
In effect. As the day progresses, you start manifesting all those behavioral attributes. Wow. You see it. It's just that there are some salient things.
There's so many, like OCD.
Yeah.
Is OCD a form of bipolar disorder?
Yeah, OCD is not in the spectrum of bipolar disorder, but it's considered to be in the spectrum of anxiety disorder. And anxiety disorder and depressive disorder, they are like they are usually a very high comorbidity between the two. Comorbidity means they can coexist together, the same person. That means they can coexist together.
Okay.
So, and I also said it earlier on that people who are in the cluster of anxious personality traits, dependent personality traits, there is also obsessive compulsive personality traits. They are put together as in the cluster C. All of them can have mood disorder later.
Okay, the essence of this show really is to bring to the awareness of millions of our viewers, so that in case something is happening somewhere, people are aware of it. Yeah. And so if you find yourself having to care for a sufferer, what are some of the clear steps that we should and can take?
Yes, one of the things I ought to have said earlier on about mental illness is that it affects their memory, the cognitive aspect of it, our memory. It affects our thinking, our thoughts, feeling, emotion, action, and behaviors. Okay. There's adverse effect in that realm. And one important thing also is that it's able to cause pain and distress to the person, individual suffering it, and the caregivers, and people around them, loved ones around them. So I know a lot of caregivers, the problem usually gets to them. But if you have someone that is suffering from something like that, from mental health issue, what I just need to tell you is that you should try as much as possible to provide support for the person, because if you don't provide enough support, it may cause more harm than good.
What kind of support? Because if I'm not informed, if I don't know about what to do,
Yeah,
I might be aggravating the situation.
Yes, yeah, it's quite possible, because that's what we call I express emotion in mental health issues. Usually come from the loved ones, the immediate or primary caregivers. This could include hostility, critical comments. For example, if the person just does something, you say, the next set of words that will come out of your mind, have you taken your drug today?
Wow.
So it gets back to the person. So they are trying to tell me that there is a problem.
So that's what not to do. What should we do? Like 3 or 4.
So what the person should do is that you need to realize first that this person didn't bring this problem on himself. So it's just life happens to every one of us. And there's a thin line between sanity and insanity. Anybody can cross the line at any time. It could be the person taking care of him or her. You need to empathize.
Okay.
You put yourself in the shoe of the person. So based on that, you try as much as well not to stigmatize, not to observe not to do what we call social distancing. Distance yourself from the person. You don't want them to know that you are whom you are. Because the people taking care of them too could also be stigmatized. That is what we call courtesy stigma. Yeah, because even doctors, psychiatrists taking care of the mentally are also stigmatized.
Yeah, if you show up at my door,
if you do something, how are you behaving like your patient?
This one has a visitor.
So you need to be aware of that and try as much as possible to let the person know that you are in this together.
Yes.
You are in it together, and then everything will be okay.
Yes.
You try to do that, and you provide the monetary support also, because taking care of the mentally ill is usually capital intensive.
Yes.
And to make the matter worse, in this part of the world, we pay out of pocket. Pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
It took a long time before they allow basic mental health issue to be incorporated in the NHIS. What is even there is that there are even some stringent conditions that are put there that certain people cannot access NHIS
So it's not
services.
holistic. It's not total.
It's not total, especially substance use disorder. They believe that the belief is that you brought it upon yourself. So why should you now be using another set of people's money to take care of you? Because when it comes to insurance, the more the merrier. You contribute to take care of others. So that's the problem.
I'm sure that at this point, a lot of people will be wondering, okay, where does one turn to for support? When we have not just bipolar, but when we have mental disorders.
Yes, I said earlier on that when I was defining what health is according to the WHO, I deliberately put spiritual well-being. Yes, because we discovered that what has helped a lot of people is the spiritual aspect of it also. So the rate at which people will be having mental health issues, especially in this part of the world, would have been at an alarming rate, if not because of the level of our spirituality.
Okay.
And then our culture also. We have a culture that looks out for others.
Okay.
Especially, they don't have to be your immediate family members. Especially if they are your neighbors. You notice that this person used to see come out very early in the morning to do certain things. For some days, you've not been seeing the person. It's quite possible that the person is suffering from depression. You tend to go in and what is actually happening? That's a communal effort, which is not happening in the other part of the world. You are every man for himself. So you can be inside house for months, and nobody will even bother to find out what is actually happening to you.
Concerning medical facilities, availability of medical facilities, and probably counseling, opportunities. How do people begin to find where these people are or where to go, apart from the immediate family and the church?
Yeah, okay. Thank
Or
you for
the
that.
mosques.
Thank you for that. This can start from the primary health centers. These are the grassroots people who there is something that was done by World Health Organization. We call it MHGAP, Mental Health Gap Action Plan, whereby they go to train people in the primary health center, primary health facilities to recognize basic mental health ailments, anxiety disorders, depression, neuronal disorders, substance use disorders. These are the things you need to look out for. If you see them, these are the basic things you need to do, and quickly refer.
Go to your primary.
Quickly refer to the secondary or tertiary referral center, so that we'll be able to see people that will be of help unto them and be able to cope the problem as early as possible.
I've read extensively on this thing, and maybe I should boast a bit about some of the things I've read. I've also read about alter ego. Alter ego is also a dual personality kind of thing. Is there any relationship between alter ego and bipolar disorder?
Yes, alter ego has to do not only with bipolar disorder, it has to do with all mental health ailments. There's what we call structural model of the mind, where we talk about id, according to Sigmund Freud, where we talk about id, ego, and superego. So id is like the primitive form of us, the selfish aspect of us when we are very young. It has to do with what we want. We want to, if you don't get it, that is a problem. You start crying. But as you are growing older, maybe around 3 years, you know that the heat, you have to put the heat behind you because you are hurting others. Your demand is affecting others, it's causing pain for others. You tend to regulate that. That's when ego starts coming in. Like there is a reality that I can't get everything that I want. Sometimes you tend to be patient with your parents or with your caregiver or whoever that is around you. You tend to be patient. But at the time, there is what we also call superego. Will be there. So ego is like the gate in between id and super ego. So, but when there is a problem at the level of the ego, there is breakage in the ego boundary, then everything goes haywire. That is when mental health issues come into being, because the sense of reality is no longer there. The judgment is impaired.
The judgment becomes impaired.
Yes. So that is what happens also with someone that has bipolar disorder.
So you're not sure whether you're here or there.
There's what we call disinhibition. They minimize risk. Someone that is suffering from bipolar disorder, the libido is on the high side. They can just sleep with anyone. So they minimize the risk. If you tell them, now don't you think you can catch disease? What do you mean? I'm enjoying myself. All those stuff. So that is a breakage in the ego boundary.
So when you assume that you're a superman, you know, and
when you assume
you change your mind about it.
Yes, when you assume you're a superman, you have extraordinary power, you are endowed, you tend to go extra mile, not even mind the consequences. So that means that it's a problem.
All right.
But, sorry, Helen. I'm so sorry. But you see, what we're talking about, I'm going back to mania now.
Yes.
In some parts of the world, even here, it becomes commercialized. How do they turn it around? You know, because this man is clearly eccentric. Yeah, eccentric is the word. But they commercialize it in such a manner that it works for him, and people love it.
Yes, like I used to say, that a lot of our celebrities have one form of bipolar disorder or the other. Just that maybe I can say they have bipolar 2, whereby the main thing there is the hypomania. I remember one of my teachers then used to tell us that if you don't have any choice, that you need to have one mental health issue or the other. You need to have a mental health issue. It's better to be hypomanic. Because if you're hypomanic, you believe that you are good. And then failure is not an option. You want to go all out. Just the only problem is that it will get to a time that elastic limit will be reached. And the functioning of the person will now be going down. And then the person will not be able to function well again.
Wow.
So
Okay.
someone that believes that is at the top of his game, that is good, he will work towards it. And then will make the best out of it. And also, I also said that there is a form of coping mechanism we call sublimation. This is a matured coping mechanism whereby you make the best out of the underlying inner problem that you have. Okay. For example, someone that is a street fighter can eventually be taught how to become a boxer and make so much money out of it.
All right, as we get ready to wrap up this conversation, if I say take a minute, take 2 minutes to summarize all that we need to know about bipolar disorder, what would it be?
Yeah, thank you very much. All you need to know about bipolar disorder is that it's a mood disorder. And then it's one of the mental health illnesses. And it's a mood disorder. It's like in between. It's not as bad as psychotic disorder, unless there is a superimposed psychotic disorder. That's when it becomes a severe problem.
Can it be cured?
It can be managed. Okay. It can be managed, but we can't say it can be cured because it's a kind of mental health ailment that has the tendency of remitting. There is a tendency of remissions, especially after the fourth episode. The person, the level of remission will be rapid.
Okay. So when you say fourth episode, it means that there's a second, there's a third, there's a fourth. We'll have a part 2 of this conversation. I think we should, right?
Thank you.
So bipolar disorder is experienced by a lot of people. He said, 1 out of 4. Very scary. Now, it does not vanish on its own. He has said it's managed, it cannot be cured, and the management comes through medications, talk therapy, lifestyle changes, and a lot more. At this point in time, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Dr. Owolabi, I wouldn't invite you to my house because when they see you, they say a shrink is visiting him. So I will come over to you.
That's discrimination now.
I'll come over to you. But quite frankly, I want to thank you for your contribution to this program.
Thank you.
Today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
You've been a lot of help.
Thank you.
Okay, John, we move on?
Yeah. So much help for patients and their families. Thank you, Doctor. We move on now to other matters. First, a stopover at the gym to help us stay fit and healthy. And then we shall be joined by Feron Shonuga and Mojisola Ogunkoya on the lifestyle segment, discussing emotional intelligence, understanding and management grief. Yeah.
Managing grief is very key at this point in time. So much is happening around us. So if you're ready, and we know that the Keep Fit coach is waiting. So off to the gym, John. Are we joining them?
Yeah.
All right, let's go.